Good afternoon, welcome back to the action in Blackpool. Chris Day against Phil Harrison is our next game. Phil Harrison, of course, coming off the back of that final appearance last night when he came so close, just coming up short against John McAllister. Chris Day knows that this is going to be a pretty tough test for him. Not a bad position to start from, though. Clearly when you're playing one of the top players, getting a good start is of paramount importance. Purposefully playing up the table because he wants to leave the ball bottom left to the position to get on the 8 ball. So you're going to take the ball top right, leave an angle on the ball to top left just to come down the table slightly. Needs to avoid or negotiate that cannon. Didn't really want to be going anywhere near the 8 ball there. That could have gone wrong. He almost brushed off the back of it and ended up in behind. It's also just made it a little bit more difficult. Originally I think the plan was just to leave it where it was on its spot, drop the yellow into the corner and then have the 8 ball to the centre. You can still play that, but it's going to be a tighter angle now. No point trying to overcomplicate that shot though. The shot to the right centre was always going to be the easiest way and guaranteed position. Top pros are pretty good with these shots, and actually it's quite a tight angle when you're right behind it. So great start from Chris Day, and that's exactly what he needs to do in this match. Phil Harrison is a match for anybody, and you know that he's going to be getting a significant number of chances off his own break. So well, good news, bad news. Happy to be at the table, obviously, but not the ideal position for the cue ball. Good chance this for Chris Day. It's not often in a match against Phil that you get a chance to get ahead at the beginning. It's kind of an important frame to win, because even though it's a long match, it's just keeping your opponent frozen on 0 and looking like you mean to be there and showing some intent is pretty important. Quite a big target to hit that ball, never sure where the white was going to end up afterwards. Had to play into it with pace really. It wasn't one of those cannons that you wanted to play in gently looking to hold position. Better to get a firm hit and be sure of getting the balls out, and then hoping that the cue ball was going to stay somewhere near this end of the table. Just about okay. You can cut the ball into the right centre. Natural angle's taking the white towards the right corner pocket, so it's just a case of how he controls Looks like he's going to try and dig into it, drag it onto the bottom cushion. Trouble with playing that way, and it was kind of unavoidable because he obviously had to avoid the in-off, was that the cue ball was always going to be tracky up and down the table. The other choice would have been to try to clip it in very thin, favour the thin part of the pocket and take the white round 2 cushions. So one of these positions where if he could just get into a decent spot at the bottom of the table, he'd actually be in quite good shape, but it's just struggling slightly to get into prime position, and now he has found the prime position. Great shot off the left side cushion. That red does pass the 2 yellows to the bottom left. It's a slightly messy layout when he came to the table, but he's navigated this well, looking very purposeful. In a way, mentally it's slightly easier when you're playing someone like Phil Harrison, although you've got the difficulty of what a good player he is, but it's very binary. You just know you've got to play well. It's not one of those ones you're turning up wondering what kind of standard your opponent's bringing. Phil is the ultimate model of consistency, so you know you're either going to play well or you're going to lose the match. Right now, Chris Day's got off to the perfect start. Couldn't quite continue the run going. Would obviously love to have made a ball off that break and just tried to continue piling the pressure on. Chance to get his first frame on the board here. These reds are sitting pretty nice. For some players I think it's probably quite hard when they've had a deep run in one tournament going back to the early rounds and starting again. But if there's anybody who's not really that fazed by that, it is Phil Harrison. He's well known for playing in any pool tournament that's going. He's not precious about it having to be a prestigious event. He just loves playing the game. Plays in numerous club weekend tournaments, so getting up for an event of the stature of the Pro Series is never going to be hard for him, and the fact that he's now starting again at the beginning of the tournament, having been in that final, is going to be of similarly little concern. Balls link up nicely on the right hand side of the table now for him. It's looking like being a good standard of play this match, as you would expect from these two. Purposefully just leaving a slight angle there, just bump the cue ball off the right hand side cushion, draw it back up the table into open play for the black. Pinpoint as ever, didn't need to be near or straight, but he has achieved both. Just leaves the most elementary of black balls. So 10 minutes down, 2-1. So Phil Harrison steps up in frame 4. Not a great result off his last break. Looking to improve on that. Cue ball safely on the table. Ball safely potted. Nice pattern safely delivered. Couldn't really ask for a much more straightforward opportunity than this. The yellow's pretty much perfect. The only ball that's remotely difficult to access is the one on the left-hand side cushion near the break line, but it's got a perfect angle to get straight onto that. Depending on the angle he's got here, certainly play the plant and bump the cue ball into the red, or you may be able to see the one over the middle pocket directly. So you could see the one over the pocket, so just remove this one down the rail, which was the only potentially inaccessible one. Just going around to look, that yellow may pass to the right centre, but doesn't necessarily have to take it now. Can come down the table if not. So bottom left, bottom right, and then leave the ball to the left centre to get position on the black. The only potentially complicating factor is the red next to it, so just needs to make sure he's coming at an angle where he's going to be able to get past that red. That's not ideal. No problem obviously with the pot, but wanted to be an inch or so shorter of that with the cue ball, because then if he just got to the bottom of the white, it would have just made the shot easier. It looks like he can just cue round the 8 ball, so I think he can dig in enough. Played with a bit of involuntary right hand side there, because it's the only bit of the bottom of the cue ball he could access, but shouldn't be a problem. But if he could have just got a couple of inches further up the table, left this yellow straight, it was a formality. Just got a little bit of angle going the wrong way now, so just got to play a bit more of a shot to guarantee position. Oh, and he hasn't hit that at all. He's playing for the gap down the middle of the table, but it's come up way short. Very uncharacteristic error that. He was always leaving that as the last ball, knowing that he needed to get on it fairly straight. High on it would have been okay, because he could have played a cannon onto the red that was immediately below. The only thing he didn't want to do was low. And it was the kind of innocuous positional shot off the ball in the bottom left-hand corner, which looked like it shouldn't be much of an issue, that allowed him to slip out of position there. And this is more than Chris Day could possibly have hoped for. I mean, look at the position of these balls. These are just where you'd throw them on the table if you're just warming up at the beginning of a session. Nothing at all to do, just a case of minding his work. Just plan back from what ball he wants to leave to get position on the black, although even that's not going to give him too much to think about. Got to make hay here. You don't get these kind of chances very often from Phil Harrison. hard to make too much drama out of this kind of position. It's a finish you firmly expect him to make, bar some catastrophic error, so just a case of composing himself. He's well aware of the importance of it. It's a game of very small margins, and when you get these chances, you've got to punish your opponent. You simply can't let slip. If every pool player took all the chances they were given in a match, they'd win the vast majority of the games, even though you hear a lot of talk after matches about not having enough chances. It's quite often the case that it's a failure to take a chance that leads to the problem. Chris has been gifted a couple that maybe he wouldn't have expected so far. Making this look very easy now. It's able to force through to leave that red pretty much straight. And with this simple 8 ball, a chance for a 3-1 lead. And 3-1 lead is confirmed. So Chris Day 3-1 up. Big powerful break. Not a good result though. Balls flying around the table, but nothing quite finding a pocket. Clever shot. White off the first ball onto the second ball to pot it. It's got the 1 ball tied up on the right hand side, but it's actually in a bad spot. It's got the ball near it, which is always helpful. You can either draw the cue ball up onto the right hand side cushion and drop in behind the yellow that's tied up, or play off the cushion and try and flick the red out. That works pretty well. Had a nice angle just to run full into the yellow. The key thing there, if you were cannoning the yellow, is to make sure you bumped it into play. It's a clearance where the cue ball's going to need to travel a bit, because he's got the ball right on the bottom cushion, which it's going to take now, because even though it's not a difficult pot, it's not necessarily going to be the easiest one to drop on. And he's found a lovely gap there. That was absolutely ideal, coming in between those two reds. So Phil Harrison steps up in frame 6, clawed 1 back. Can he continue that run? Well, that's a good start. Another good break. The thing about his break this weekend has been not just the quality of the potting, but the control. He's controlled the white very well, and he just seems to keep getting left pretty straightforward patterns. As ever, made to look straightforward by the quality of the positional play, but nonetheless, it's not just whether you pot a ball off the break, it's what you leave afterwards. And we've seen a few players who look like they're just trying to inject a bit of extra pace into the break, and they're just getting left with very messy layouts, which is meaning that they're then having to chase the game around. It's not been the easiest start to this match. Phil would obviously love to get it levelled up at 3 apiece. Tony Holgate has just joined me in the commentary box as we see a very surprising miss from Phil. That was not the ball you expected him to miss.
No, unbelievable. And good afternoon, Mark. I just wanted to pass. I'll be on the main table very shortly. I just saw you sat on your own. I thought I'd come and keep you company for a little while.
That's very kind of you. Always a pleasure, sir.
Not everybody would say that, actually. They would probably say, no, please, just keep walking. But yeah, Chris Day, 3-2 up against Phil Harrison. Interesting scoreline. Phil obviously has been a very busy man so far this week. Obviously made the event one final, narrowly missing out against John McAllister last night, but a gruelling day, and he's had to play very early this morning in another gruelling match, and he won 7-6. Chris Day, I know very well. Back in the days in the mid to late 90s when I played county for Suffolk, and I gave this young man his debut to the Suffolk County side when he qualified from the youth team when he was about 16, 17. I put him straight in the A team, much to the dismay of some of the people that ran Suffolk County until they saw him play.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think probably their mind was put at rest once they saw the quality.
Yeah, there was sort of the opinion that, well, he's a bit too young yet, he's not over 18. I said, if he's good enough, he's old enough. And then he sort of started winning like 3 out of 3 county games, and I could see very early on how talented he was. And here we are several years later, and he's one of the country's top professionals. Lots of work for Chris to do here, though. Trying to set himself up with a double back into this corner. This low percentage. When he hit that very thin, and as you can see, he's landed not in the greatest place. Harrison will be looking on now thinking, well, I think I'm going to get a little go at these reds. I think maybe the shot will probably be play a little plant and try and play the loss of turn here for Chris Dane. If he can see the cue or somewhere near behind that black ball, I think that's his only sort of chance. I'm not sure he could play this plant and get the yellow to drop in behind it, so I think it's try and play the loss of turn. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. That's as good as you could hope for, really, Mark, wasn't it?
Yeah, slightly roundabout way. There's a lot of balls flying around there, but ended up in the right spot, didn't it?
I think he played the loss of turn, but also hitting it at a pace that if the yellow flew in as well, he might have a result.
Yeah, I mean, he's got off to a great start before you were here. He's got up to a 3-1 start, mainly of his own doing, but Phil had given him a couple of chances that he wouldn't have been expecting. saying at the beginning that he needs to press home that advantage. You know that Phil's going to turn up at some point in the match. And even there, where he'd left it as hard as it could be, Phil still picked the pot out.
Yeah, it's a cracking pot there from Phil Harrison. Still not easy. I think he might have to double this red into the middle. I think if you play the cut here, the cue was going to roll quite. I just think the cut's quite tight. I don't particularly like that shot. But then Phil Harrison will know these tables a lot better than I will. But he has played a double and he's played it very well. The red must pass between yellow and black at this bottom corner. Just roll the cue ball straight into the other red and he'll be home and hose and back to 3-3.
Yeah, and that was a good double because he had to slightly make that angle. It would naturally have gone a bit wide, but just able to force it. Good cannon there, just nudge the red towards the pocket.
Played that perfectly.
And this is exactly what Chris would have feared would happen. He got off to that 3-1 start, but then you just know that Phil's going to turn up. I'd say this weekend, Phil's potting has been very good as well. We always talk about his positional play, but actually his single ball potting has been excellent. The times he has been called on for a long shot. We get the benefit of the Sunday getting to see some of the other players. We've got 520 players in action across the venue this weekend. And even though not all of those are household names, the quality of play around the room, if you just walk around the venue and see some of the outside tables, some excellent players out there. Does this make you want to get back on the table, Tony? I know you've been playing on the seniors tour this year.
Not good enough, unfortunately, Mark. I'd love to, but you've got to be at a certain standard, and I think you've got to put a lot of time into practice, which I was never the greatest practice player when I was actually playing at the top level. And certainly would be hard to get me to do it now. But it's fantastic to watch, and yeah, it's a shame this wasn't around 20 years ago, because I mean this would have been fantastic to play on. Well, it's fantastic to play on, but for me, selfishly, it would have been great.
Yeah, I mean the game has changed a lot. If you think how successive new sets of rules, they've always been described as more attacking than the last ones, and everyone's reacted with surprise, and then you get used to those and the next one comes along.
Well, and this would have certainly helped as well, playing these rules. As in, didn't really have much of a safety shot in me. You know, I can cope with these loss of turn shots, and you know, my little brain will get round a bit of that.
Well, let's just say you were ahead of your time, Tony. You're the precursor to these rules.
I don't know about that, but must admit I did err on the side of aggressive attacking play more than the safety game. A lot of it down to patience. Played that well there. Chris just managed to hold the cue ball onto the yellow that he's just planted down the rail.
Yeah, he has played well, it's got to be said, in this match. He's looked very solid. Not that we should say that as a surprise. It's just one of the things when you're playing one of the top players, people sort of talk about you like you're the underdog, but obviously Chris Day, an excellent player in his own right. I think the only pocket that the 8 ball will go in is the bottom left-hand corner, so they're going to have to force the cue ball over to the right-hand side.
Just wondered if would it not go past red into the centre?
Yeah, maybe it looks tight from this angle, but that would be an easier positional. Oh, it does, yeah. Your eyesight's better than mine.
Good job I've turned up in it.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, from that camera angle. It looks like that red's right in the way, but obviously the way he's played this, it's going to fly in. And there you go. That's got to give him a lot of confidence, because he's been at the top of the game for a while, but wasn't necessarily tipped as one of the absolute favourites for that kind of tournament. And a rare moment, Phil Harrison dry break.
To be fair, yesterday when I was doing comms with Chris Melly in the semi-final, and Chris pointed out that if there's any weakness in Phil Harrison's game, it's his break. He said it's not always. He said because he drops his arm as he goes through to strike the cue ball, and it just takes a bit of power off. And then you saw it there. You know, he did have a couple of dry breaks last night as well.
Yeah, it's definitely not a break constructed around the power, is it? It's all about the control of the strike, which for the most part does seem to serve him well. Observing earlier that he seems to get a good split. It's not just that he always pots a ball.
You see Chris Day attacking that awkward yellow from the outset. I don't think that goes in the top left-hand corner. Let's have a little look. That's why I should have used the overhead. Just got me back.
Well, I'll certainly be happy that it did pot, because that's made things much more straightforward. You can now take these two balls at the top of the table and come down for the two at this end. Always just has this very sort of focused, solid look about him. You just always fancy him to go about things in a sensible way.
Just looking at the angle now, I think he's just come just a tad too far. We'll have a look from over the top there. You can see the angle. You might have to just take this cue ball into the side rail and then bring the cue ball down for the two at the bottom. Well, he tried to pinch some and come down there, and I don't think he's got away with that one. There's no way that yellow goes past the red into the bottom right-hand corner, so a little mistake here from Chris Day.
Well, it couldn't get through enough to pot it, but could get it over the hole. Not that that's particularly valuable at this rule set.
Well, Phil now, he can play the red into the yellow over the back and screw back cue ball to the side rail. If the red doesn't go in behind it, it's played lost of turn, but if he leaves the cue ball on the left-hand rail, he's still put Chris in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, this is how the game's really evolved, isn't it? We're just saying with this rule set, it used to be that if you had the yellow ball over that pocket with all those reds around it, you'd be very happy with your situation. It's not that useful to Chris.
No, it's a shot to nothing for Phil. He's in a win-win situation here. There you see, he didn't make the red as well, so it is a loss of turn shot. That looks a little bit too thin for Chris Day to be able to cut this in.
Yeah, that was the key thing. Make sure you left it very thin. I mean, there is the sort of exhibition shot you play cushion first with side, but it's not.
He's going to have a go. Well, he's going to play it with a little bit of right hand side. He's trying to make contact with cushion and yellow at the same time. Oh, wow.
What a phenomenal shot. Oh, how's his luck, though?
Oh, dear. I think he deserved better there, because that was a very thin cut he's hit.
Yeah, Phil will be disappointed that he'd left a cut at all, but that was a great shot.
Well, I did say that he wanted, the ideal shot would have been to leave him stuck to the cushion with the cue ball. He played it a little bit hefty. But anyway, there is a slim chance of Chris getting this into the middle bag with the 8 ball. Maybe even in the top left-hand corner if he hits it thin. Wow. I think now can Phil get past the black to the ball over the pocket. If he can, he's okay. If he can't, Chris has had the second prize there. And you see he's got down, he can get through this. It's not that easy red in. Let's keep going with the cue ball. Little bit in between the devil and the deep blue sea there where he's landed. still got a little cut in with this red into the corner. Might even try and move the red that's over the middle, or near the middle. Same shot. Well, Harrison negotiated this tricky little finish with these reds after Chris Day snooked himself on the black, but left it mildly awkward. Needed to nick this frame, Phil, and he has done. And that levels the match once again, 4-4. Well, that's a great split. And very nice there for Chris Day. Made a couple of yellows off the break. Comes round and surveys the situation. For me, I think I'd rather have reds, just on the position of the balls. I think you got, with the yellows, you got one on the side rail, one on the bottom rail, and to get between those two balls would be tough to navigate. So he's going to play this red ball that's next to the black. Not got anything with the cue ball, just wants to drop this in, so it's just straight line cueing, bit cushed up. Played it really nicely. Very solid cue is Chris Day.
Yeah, I've been impressed with how rock solid he's been. Somebody that you'd always trust to play an important shot if you needed to.
Now he'd be looking to go up this left-hand rail with this red. That would be his most awkward one. Played this in the knowledge he's not really leaving anything for Phil Harrison if he did miss this, but you think he'll pot this up here. Not going to do much again, just roll it in. Another solid shot though.
Yeah, but a lot of people would just have been rolling that in pocket right, but he's blasted that up the cushion.
Yeah, I think Ollie just dribbled that.
That's uncharacteristic for you. I thought you were famed for bashing the balls down the rail.
Well, it's just just holding those two balls over the bag, but very confident, solid cue from Chris Day. And it's impressive because every time he gets his nose in front and Phil pegs him back, and he, it's not phasing him at all. A lot of players now will be thinking, I can't shake Phil Harrison off, and then all of a sudden a really bad mistake will creep in and your arm comes off, and then Harrison just charges over the line and says thank you very much.
Well, you've got to say, on his route to the final yesterday, there were quite a few people were just gifting him frames. I mean, it was sort of from his own making, because it was clear that he was playing so well, but he definitely had some matches where people handed him a lot of chances.
Yeah, I like he has a nice pause just before he strikes the ball, Chris Day, and it's a very solid follow through with the cue.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure where the nickname was. It the family had a farm. It goes back a long way.
Yeah, in Cambridgeshire. He used to turn up late to a lot of events because he came by tractor.
Well, certainly no messing around once he does turn up to the event. I don't think he's a massive fan of the short shot clock, but he's actually pretty good at it. And the same with 6-road shootouts. He never looks the most comfortable at doing them, but keeps setting consistently good times.
But that's Phil all over his mannerisms and his little idiosyncrasies. He'll shake his head. And it is a common joke between us all that have known him a long, long time. We always say when Phil shakes his head looking at a finish, we know he's absolutely perfect on it.
Yeah, that's long been the joke, hasn't it? Depends how much he shakes his head. There are times when he's genuinely disappointed, but he can be in prime position and still look a bit cross about it. Just wants to draw back towards the middle of the table, down the line of that cushion.
What is he? Just want to. Well, there's a couple of things you can do here. You can play this, just roll this in, and the keyboard hits that red just next to it and kicks out of the way. So try and open a gap up for both yellows. We could just pop it in and get the one in the middle. But he's gone for the former.
That was a much better shot than it looked as well, because if you don't catch that red completely full, you skim off one side or the other, and you're not in prime position. Whereas that's pretty much where you'd put it with your hand.
The tricky bit here is the ball at the bottom. Now then, he could pop this in the middle and get onto the one on the bottom now, and then maybe try and play the large yellow into the middle, but it's going to leave a tricky black. Or he plays this one down the rail, comes back with the angle and plays it in the middle next, and bottom one's last, which is what he's doing. Now this is dependent on the black going past that red into the left-hand centre. And he's also looked at the right-hand side. It might actually go in both of the middle pockets. And that would be ideal for Phil, because he'll drag the cue ball back here now. Nice control. There you see he's having a look. He's had a look at both of these centres, so I'd take it goes in either. We'll soon know when he cues it up. This is a roll in the pocket, so this is going to be black left-hand centre. And Chris Day can just not shake him off.
Yeah, this has been a great performance from both of them. Chris Day's done well to consistently get ahead, but Phil just isn't going anywhere.
That's a cracking finish from Harrison, really is.
Yeah, and I mean, then you get into the territory of thinking, like, what do you have to do? Like, you couldn't really have started the match much better. Well, that is what you have to do. Keep potting the balls off the breaks.
I think the way Chris has got to look at it, he said he needs to keep breaking and finishing to just get over the line. But now we are at the 15 seconds of shot, of course, now, as Chris Day uses his extension, as he just decides which route, which is a sensible thing at this stage of the game. Plot your route now, use that extra bit of time, and then try and gallop them in after.
Potential 3 frames left to be played, so there is plenty of time to play all of them, because they're going to have to get about it quickly given that short shot clock.
Well, the way Chris has been playing, you think he's going to take these out, and this will put him 6-5 on the hill. And then that will leave Harrison requiring the same result of his break. I'll have to power this cue ball down now for those last 2 reds. Where's the cue ball going? He's gone a little bit far there, Chris. That's the first time he's fell out of position for quite some time. Well, he's gone into the top corner. Oh, that's a great shot there from Chris Day. Recovered. And this is going to put him on the hill. 6-5 in front. And both these players are playing absolutely fantastic. And Harris is going to have to break and run out yet again to pull this match level.
Yeah, it's going to be such a tough pill to swallow for whichever player loses this, because they've both played their part in this match.
Super stuff from Chris Day. And he's 1 frame away from advancing against the great Phil Harrison.
So Phil Harrison breaks off in frame 12 in a frame that he absolutely has to win to stay in this match.
Well, he got the ball off the break. Used to matches going the wire though is Phil Harrison. He's already had one match at 7-6 today. He had a 6-red shootout yesterday. He's trying to get this one to the wire now. He's in decent position on his yellows. Oh, he wanted to hit that a little bit thicker into that 8 ball there. Now you see he's only got one option here, and he's going to have to play this yellow that's directly below the black ball and cut it into the corner. Now what he want to do is try and flick this yellow off the bottom rail. Played it well. Now he's into the middle. These are not easy. 6-5 down, queuing like this is a tough shot. Oh, he's played it beautifully. And we're going to go 6 each. Phil just looks to be playing the yellow now next to the left of the black. Stops this white dead. Pulled over a bit. Ooh, just chancing a bit there. It's going to be bridging over the 8, but nothing to do with the cue ball. Just bounce off the round, black in the centre. What a match we're having here, Mark.
Well, you picked the right one to drop in for, because this has been an absolute classic.
Yeah, been blessed.
So 12 frames played, still nothing to choose between the players. 6 frames to Chris Day, 6 frames to Phil Harrison, and we have ourselves a decider.
Well, I thought just for a split second he was going to go dry, but he hasn't. He's got a red. Now these aren't gimmies, but it's a real chance. Obviously a tricky red ball next to the, just below the black. But it surely will be. Mind you, I'll tell you what, there's a case for yellows as well, and he's going to go yellows. Just look there. You've got the 2 awkward ones that are stuck together, but you can get into them now. Oh, he's played it a bit soft. Don't know why he didn't try and force that in there.
Just adds to the pressure of the decider, the fact that they're nearly always played under the 15-second shot clock, because by definition they're when you're running out of time.
Well, he's played just to get on this yellow into the centre. Again, he's got awkward queuing. Gone off the red. He has. Now then. Not sure he wanted that little bump into that red. He looks like he's going to have to cut the yellow in just below the red now first. No, he feels he's got enough angle to get. See, that looks very thin, and I thought he was steering towards the red, but he can just dodge it. Oh, he's played that well. Great shot. This has been some performance from Chris Daymart.
It's been exceptional. Right from the first ball, he looks like he was up for this match. Looked like he could run away with it a bit easier at the beginning, but it's a testament to Phil Harrison. He's just stayed and stayed and stayed. And what a performance Chris has put up here. And with that 8 ball, he completes a 7-6 victory over Phil Harrison. Warm handshake and congratulations from Phil, because what else can you say there, really? Chris just played fantastically. Phil did everything he could to stay in that match, and still it wasn't good enough.